The first part of the story introduces the reader to Zira, a member of the alien species known as the Lakari, and immediately drops us into one of the most emotionally and morally dark settings imaginable, a slave auction. The environment is cold, both literally and metaphorically. It's sterile and harsh, devoid of compassion. Just another day in the brutal Trinari expanse, a lawless region where slavery is legal, even profitable. Zira is described not just in physical terms, orange skin, bruises, but through her emotional and psychological state. She's beaten down, not just in body, but in spirit. Her posture eyes down, body still shows submission and the learned helplessness born of long-term abuse. She doesn't even think of herself as a person anymore, but as a lot number 774 HF. That small detail shows how dehumanized, or delecarized in this case, she has become. Her identity has been replaced with a label, which is all that matters in this kind of system. The HF in her lot number might even stand for human female, which makes it more cruelly ironic since she's not even human. It reflects the auctioneer's carelessness or perhaps an institutional classification. Ever another reminder that to the slavers, she's just inventory. Suddenly, the scene shifts when the auction begins. The bidding is tense, but quickly ends when a new, unfamiliar figure enters, a human male, specifically described as middle-aged. This is a crucial subversion of expectations in both the in-universe and narrative sense. In many HFY stories, humans are seen as young, aggressive, or militaristic. Instead, this man Jack is older, weary-looking, and yet commands fear and respect. The very reaction of the crowd says everything. They part for him. The auctioneer stammers. This implies that humans, or perhaps this particular human, have a reputation, not just as dangerous, but as unpredictable, perhaps even mythic. The galaxy seems unsure of how to handle him, and that's powerful. Even before Jack speaks a word, his presence alters the atmosphere. That silence after his bid? It's not out of respect, it's fear. And from Zira's perspective, that fear is justified. She's heard stories. Everyone in the galaxy has heard something about humans. Deathworlders, monsters, soldiers of chaos. So when Jack becomes her new owner, Zira doesn't feel relief, she feels dread. She believes, quite logically based on her experience and rumor, that the worst is yet to come. It's important to note that this fear isn't irrational. In fact, it's a perfectly rational response to her environment, experiences, and trauma. She's been passed between cruel masters before. What would make a human, a being from a planet famous for violence and war, any different? The final paragraph of Part 1 captures this fear perfectly. Jack steps forward not with menace, but with presence, and he doesn't even look at her like property. He just looks at her like she's a person. This moment throws Zira off entirely. Her programming years of conditioning to expect pain can't compute the neutral, maybe even kind look from her new master. This is where the theme of misconception versus truth begins to surface in the story. Zira has been told what humans are. She's built an internal defense mechanism against cruelty. But what if those defenses are now standing in the way of something else? Something far more rare. Compassion. The title of the story, she thought. The human bought her for pain, but he gave her freedom instead, is echoed in this first chapter as dramatic irony. We, the audience, already suspect Jack's true intentions are noble. But Zira doesn't, so we experience her fear, her confusion, and her mistrust, all while already knowing the twist that lies ahead. The brilliance of Part 1 lies in its restraint. There are no grand speeches, no epic fights. Just a slave girl, a quiet human, and a single pivotal action, a purchase. In a setting where buying a sentient being is normalized, this act is not heroic in itself, But as the story will later show, what Jack does next is where true heroism lies. This part builds tension not through action, but through assumed horror and a slow-burning mystery. Why did Jack buy her? What are his motives? Will he really be different? The reader turns the page not because of a cliffhanger, but because of the hope that maybe, just maybe, this human is the anomaly the galaxy wasn't prepared for, and that maybe Zira is more than just lot number 774 HF after all. Shifts the setting dramatically from the cold, brutal auction house to the inside of Jack's ship, a place that, for Zira, may as well be an alien world. It's not just a change of scenery, it's a psychological rupture. For the first time in years, Zira is out of a cage, and that fact alone begins to shake the foundation of her reality. The chapter opens with sensory contrast. The ship is described as smelling like metal and coffee, a far cry from the blood and fear of the slave. Pens. These two scents, metal and coffee, are symbolic. Metal represents machinery, structure, a functional, and possibly dangerous environment. But coffee? That introduces something surprisingly human, domestic, almost comforting. It's a detail that grounds Jack's world in subtle normalcy and reminds the reader that this human is not a sadist or a warlord, but someone who lives a life, a routine one. There are no cages aboard the ship, no shock collars, no restraints. And most jarring of all, when Zira instinctively sits on the floor, trained like a beaten animal, Jack frowns. His frown isn't one of disgust or superiority, it's confusion. Maybe even pity. It shows that Jack doesn't see her as beneath him, and that alone forces Zira and the reader to confront a central question. What kind of person is Jack? Zira still doesn't trust him. She can't. Her survival instinct has been forged. In abuse and betrayal, she assumes everything has a price. Everything has a trick. So when Jack tells her to take the co-pilot seat, she flinches. That seat is a position of control, of equality. To her, being allowed to sit there isn't just unusual, it's dangerous. If she does something wrong, will he punish her? Is this a test? But Jack doesn't yell, doesn't strike, doesn't demand. He simply treats her like a person. This dynamic continues when he offers her food. Again, she refuses, suspecting poison or manipulation. Jack shrugs and eats it himself. This nonchalant reaction is powerful. He doesn't pressure her. He doesn't make it a performance. He doesn't need her gratitude. He respects her space, something Zira has likely never experienced before. And here lies the thematic core of Part 2, the slow dismantling of Zira's internalized trauma. Jack's small, silent acts of kindness are like pebbles thrown at a wall. Not enough to break it down, but enough to chip it, bit by bit. She's waiting for cruelty, and she gets patience. She expects punishment, and she gets silence. She expects orders, and she gets education. That's right, Jack teaches her. This is a massive turning point. Jack doesn't just allow her to be free in the physical sense. He begins giving her knowledge, which in most slave systems is the ultimate forbidden fruit. Teaching her how to operate the console, how hyperspace jumps work. This is not just kindness, it's empowerment. It tells her, you're not a tool, you're a pilot. You're not cargo, you're crew. And yet, Zira still struggles to believe it, because trauma doesn't fade overnight. When Jack hands her a blanket, something so simple, so small, it's one of the most emotionally powerful moments of the chapter. She's not used to warmth being given freely. The act of being handed a blanket, not a chain, represents a profound psychological rupture. For most readers, that detail might seem minor. But for Zira, it's earth-shattering. Here, the theme of quiet rebellion emerges. Jack isn't some fiery freedom fighter or loud revolutionary. He's not grandstanding. He doesn't speechify. He simply lives a life that defies the norm. In a galaxy that accepts slavery as a fact of life, Jack rebels not with weapons, yet, but with compassion. His rebellion is subtle, personal, and deeply human. And this is also a key point in the broader HFY context. Many HFY stories glorify humanity through military might or physical dominance. But this story chooses a different path: moral defiance. Humanity is exceptional here not because it can kill better, but because it can care where others don T.Zira, meanwhile, is beginning to unravel. Her sense of identity, once defined entirely by her status as property, is starting to show cracks. She still expects betrayal, but a small part of her, against all logic, begins to hope. The emotional heart of the story begins to surface. Where Part 1 introduced Zira's trauma and Part 2 began quietly unraveling it, Part 3 brings her to the edge of the most important realization: maybe this human really is different. But getting there isn't easy. This part explores the deeply embedded mistrust of someone who has never known kindness without a price, and the quiet strength of a human who doesn't demand trust, but earns it. The question she never dared ask. The central event in this chapter is Zira finally asking the question that has haunted her since the auction. Why did you buy me? The wording is deliberate. She doesn't ask, why did you help me? Or, why did you rescue me? Because in her mind, she's still property, still owned. The very phrasing of the question shows how far her identity has yet to recover. Even now, she assumes Jack's motives must be self-serving. There must be a hidden reason. Maybe he's waiting until she lets her guard down. Maybe there's a darker purpose she hasn't uncovered yet. What she's really asking is this: what am I to you? Jack's silence and what it means. Jack's reaction is silence. He stares out at the stars instead of giving an immediate answer. That pause is meaningful. He's not being evasive, he's being thoughtful. This is an emotional minefield, and Jack treats it with the weight it deserves. His eventual answer is short, almost frustratingly simple, because no one else was going to, because no one should be chained like that. That statement flips the power dynamic on its head. Zira has spent her life believing that her value depended on her usefulness to others. Now Jack says something radical. Your freedom is not conditional. He didn't save her because she was special, useful, beautiful, or valuable. He saved her because it was right out in a galaxy where pragmatism and cruelty dominate. This concept is almost alien. And yet, it's the most human thing Jack could have said. The layered exchange that follows Shira pushes further. Her trauma won't let her believe in easy answers. But I'm a Lakari. My people. This line hints at something deeper. Perhaps the Lakari are seen as inferior, or genetically engineered, or bred for servitude. In many sci-fi universes, certain species are systemically enslaved or devalued. Zira believes that her identity disqualifies her from basic rights, but Jack cuts her off. Gently but firmly. Doesn't matter what you are. You were in chains. Now you're not. That may be the most HFY line in the entire story so far. It encapsulates the very spirit of the genre. Humans may come from a violent world, but they understand injustice better than most. And when they see it, they act out the datapad. Freedom in code. Then comes the next bombshell moment. Jack tosses her a datapad containing her official release of ownership. It's not just symbolic. It's legal, traceable, encrypted, permanent. In a galaxy run by systems and bureaucracy, this document isn't just a gesture. It's freedom made real. He's not holding it back until she earns it. He's not keeping her safe until she's loyal. He's already signed it, already logged it. In that one action, Jack does something few people in Zira's life ever have. He gives up power over her. And he doesn't ask for anything in return. She asks again, more softly this time. But why? His final reply is simple, but packed with moral weight. Because that's what we do, humans. Not all, sure. But the decent ones? We break chains. We don't wear them. And we sure as hell don't keep others in them. A declaration of values. This is Jack's mission statement. It's not just about Zira anymore, it's about what kind of man he is and what kind of species he represents. Not a perfect one, not a peaceful one, but a defiant one. A species that claws its way out of the dirt, fights for its ideals, and at its best refuses to let cruelty stand. This is classic HFY messaging. Humans are dangerous not because they're violent, but because they're willing to stand up against violence. When others look away, Zira's internal shift part. 3 ends not with a dramatic moment, but a quiet 1-0 holding the datapad, her hands trembling. Not from fear, from disbelief. Everything she was taught about humans, about herself, about her place in the galaxy has been shattered in just a few days. She is no longer. Lot number 774 HF. She is Zira again, a person. A being with rights, choices, and a future. Free. But more importantly, she's beginning to believe she deserves to be. Shifts the tone of the story from introspective healing to active confrontation. It's the bridge between Zira's internal transformation and her external one, the point where she stops, just processing her trauma and begins fighting back. The themes of resistance, agency, courage, and the cost of doing what's right come to the forefront. Here, both Jack and Zira must deal with the consequences of his decision to break the chain, and Zira must decide what kind of person she's going to become now that she's free. The Price of Freedom. The chapter opens with a classic sci-fi staple, the retaliation. Jack's decision to free a slave wasn't just an act of compassion. It was an act of rebellion in a galaxy that thrives on control. Word spreads, and not everyone approves. Specifically, the Kavari Syndicate, a powerful, criminal organization that operates much of the slave trade in the Trinari Expanse, isn't happy. Jack didn't just take one slave off the market. He embarrassed them, challenged their authority. That cannot go unanswered. This is a crucial moment in the HFY framework. Human defiance has triggered a response. And it's not a small one, a bounty, an ambush. An assault on Jack's ship. This is the galaxy pushing back. This is the system trying to restore order through force. Zira's turning point. The J attack is sudden and brutal, alarms blaring. The ship shaking, explosions tearing through bulkheads. And in the chaos, Zira is faced with a choice she never imagined she'd have: run or fight. This is where her transformation truly begins. Until now, Zira has been passive in her freedom. She accepted it, questioned it, and slowly began to believe in it. But now she's thrust into a situation where she has to defend it. No one is protecting her now, not even Jack, who is too busy fighting for both their lives. The significance of Zira grabbing a plasma torch, a tool, not a weapon, is huge. She doesn't wait for Jack to tell her what to do. She doesn't fall into old habits of hiding or obeying. She acts, she improvises, she resists. This scene flips the narrative of her past on its head. She has always been acted upon. Now she acts, fighting side by side. The battle is not drawn out in excessive detail. It's not the spectacle that matters, it's the partnership. Zira and Jack fight side by side, and for the first time, they are equals in struggle. She's not a burden or a rescued victim. She's a combatant, a fighter. Her blows land. Her choices matter. Jack, for his part, doesn't try to shield her or push her aside. He trusts her. He sees her as capable, and that trust is a mirror reflecting back to Zira, a version of herself she's never seen before. Powerful. She even kills one of the Kavari enforcers with her own hands. Not out of revenge, but survival. And when she does, it shakes her, not with fear, but with a strange, exhilarating clarity. "I never got to fight back before," she says. That line is quiet, but it's revolutionary. It encapsulates everything. Part 4 is about taking control of your own story. Fire as a metaphor, the title of the chapter, Old Wounds. New fire is more than poetic. It defines Zira's arc. Old wounds, her trauma, her slavery, her past. New fire, her courage, her will to fight, her rebirth. The fire inside her isn't vengeance. It's conviction. For the first time, Zira isn't just surviving the galaxy, she's pushing back against it. That internal fire is what sets her apart now. Not her species, not her scars, not even her freedom, but her decision to stand up. HFY in action. In most HFY stories, the core of humanity's strength lies not just in their tech or military might, but in their stubborn, relentless refusal to accept injustice as normal. Jack embodies this idea. He doesn't just buy Zira's freedom and walk away, he puts himself in the line of fire to protect that decision. He risks his life for a principle. That's what makes him terrifying to the galaxy's corrupt powers, not his guns, but his moral integrity. And now, Zira has caught that fire too. The galaxy should be scared. New identity through battle by the DM. End of Part 4. Zira is no longer afraid of Jack or what he might do, or even what others might do to her. She has proven to herself most of all that she is capable of more than endurance. She is capable of resistance. Her weapon was crude, her training non-existent, but she still stood up. And that makes her dangerous to systems that rely on fear and obedience. This isn't just a physical victory. It's a spiritual one. Conclusion part. 4 is about ownership not of others, but of self. Zira doesn't win the battle because she's the strongest. She wins because she chooses to fight, because she refuses to go back into the shadows. Because when the galaxy came to put her in chains again, she lit a fire instead, and beside her stood a human who gave her the match and trusted her to strike it. Together, they're not just survivors. They're a spark the galaxy will never forget. Brings the emotional and narrative arcs of the story to a satisfying close. What began with fear, slavery, and deep-seated mistrust now culminates in a powerful, transformative act. Zira choosing her own future and choosing to fight alongside the very human she once feared. This final chapter explores themes of agency, identity, loyalty, and redemption, closing the loop on both characters' journeys. A view from the edge. The scene opens with Zira standing on a platform in a freeport, place symbolic of total autonomy. Freeports are neutral zones, untethered to empires or syndicates. There are no slave markets here. No chains, no auctioneers barking out numbers. For Zira, this place is more than geography, it's a state of mind. She is no longer inside a cage. Not physically, not legally, and not mentally. This setting reflects Zira's internal transformation. Where once she stood in shackles, now she stands on a threshold literally and symbolically. She is free to walk away, to start over, to disappear into a galaxy that, for the first time in her life, can't claim to own her, and yet she doesn't. Leave. Jack's next mission. Jack, meanwhile, is prepping the ship. But this time, it's not just maintenance or travel, it's another rescue mission. This is key to understanding Jack's character. He didn't save Zira as a one-time act of mercy. Helping people is what he does. It's not about guilt or ego or glory. It's about principle. About action. Now, he's preparing to smuggle a group of enslaved children from a mining colony. Dangerous work. He could use help, but he doesn't ask Zira to stay. He doesn't assume she owes him anything. You don't have to come. That line is critical. It's not bait. It's not manipulation. It's the final, clearest demonstration of Jack's respect for her autonomy. He saved her, taught her, released her. And now? He's letting her go, if that's what she wants. This time, there's no question of ownership. Only choice. Zira's decision. Zira looks at him, then at the stars, the same stars that once represented prison bars, but now shimmer with possibility. She reflects not just on the mission ahead, but on who she has become. She doesn't feel like property anymore. She doesn't feel like a broken thing held together by fear and obedience. She feels whole. And then she says the most important words in the entire story. I know, but I want to. In those few words, Zira reclaims everything that was ever taken from her. Her voice, her agency, her future. Choice is the true freedom. This ending isn't just satisfying, it's philosophically resonant. Because the story isn't really about a human freeing an alien slave. It's about what someone does with their freedom once they finally have it. Zira could have walked away. She could have started a quiet life. No one would have blamed her. But instead, she chooses to fight for others who can't fight for themselves. She joins Jack's mission not because she owes him, but because she now shares his values. Moment completes her arc. In part 1, she was a victim. In part 2, she was confused. In part 3, she began to hope. In part 4, she took up arms. And now, in part 5, she becomes a liberator. Wyatt's classic HFY Part 5 also solidifies the story's place in the HFY, humanity, F***, yeah, *** genre, but not through brute strength or terrifying technology. Instead, it does so through moral clarity. Jack represents the best of humanity not because he's powerful, but because he's principled. He doesn't just save lives, he inspires others to rise up, to heal, to become agents of change. Zira is now part of that ripple effect. Where many galactic species enslave, abuse, and dominate, Jack, an aging, grease-stained, quiet human frees, lifts, teaches, and walks away without demanding anything in return. That's the kind of terrifying unpredictability the galaxy never prepared for. The full circle closure. The story closes by echoing the title. She thought the human bought her for pain. Double quotes, ... but he gave her a ship, a cause, a future, and most of all, freedom. These aren't just poetic lines. They're a summary of Zira's transformation. The ship represents mobility and agency. The cause represents purpose. The future represents hope, and freedom. That's everything. The cornerstone of both Jack's actions and Zira's choice.